Okay, here we are with Venom Blaster 2. For those of you that saw my original Venom Blaster video, which was the first Vapor Blaster that I built, that was built with a Harbor Freight cabinet. I got a great response to it. I thank for all the views and subscribers. I recently sold that one to a pretty great guy that makes car parts for vintage cars. So he's enjoying the first one very much. So now I built this second one because I wanted something that was much bigger so that I could get larger parts into it. So after researching for a while, I came up with the idea to use an IBC tote to use as the cabinet. So let's get up and we'll take a walk over here and we will look at what we got going on. I used a food grade IBC tote, which means that it was either used for oil or vinegar or some other food related item so that it could be cleaned easily. You want to kind of stay away from anything that had toxic chemicals in it, or paints, solvents, you know, just for your own health when you go through it to clean it. It's much easier to empty one of these out that's got, you know, a little bit of cooking oil in it or a little bit of vinegar. This particular one was cooking oil and it cleaned pretty easily. So what I did was I used pressure treated wood, built a base. The base of the IBC tote basically sits on the top of the 2x4 right about halfway up this piece of pressure treated wood. So that's the base that it sits on. I used 4-inch wheels on the bottom to move it around. The first thing I did to the tote once it was up on the base, oh, and I also have some cross members that go up across, and I'll go over more of that later. This video is basically going to be pretty basic, just showing you what it is, how it works, and then I will do another video that goes into detail about all the individual components and how to build it, what to do. So anyway, so on the IBC tote, you know that they come with a cage around them. I'll show you over on this side. The whole thing is like a giant cage. Okay, and what I did was I cut the cage where I needed to put the window and the door, and I went around it, chopped it off, and then I bought these vinyl caps to go all the way around. So then I had the opening where I wanted to put the window and the door. Then I cut the opening for the window and the door and the glove rings. We'll talk about the glove rings. I used a smaller glove ring than comes on the Harbor Freight cabinet. I bought them on Amazon. I think they were $25 a pair. And I did that because you can buy these pond gloves all over the internet. Amazon, they're on Temu, they're on AliExpress. I mean, you can get them down as low as $6 a pair, and they work fantastic in a Vapor Blaster, especially for holding small parts like on a carburetor. So they're really nice gloves for this, and they're super cheap. I also have a video some of you may have watched where I made some adapter rings to go into the Harbor Freight cabinet so that you could put the adapters on and use these gloves. So check out that video if you have the Harbor Freight cabinet and you've built a Vapor Blaster, because then you can use these gloves, which I think are awesome. So anyway, excuse me. So once I had my measurements on the where I was going to put my holes for the glove rings and the opening for the window, and then we had the opening for the door. Now the door opening itself is 2 foot by 2 foot. And I'll open this up and you can get a look and see what we got here. Okay, so there's your door opening. It's large, all right? So I can fit extremely large things in here. I can throw a turntable in there if I needed to spin it around while I work on it. So on the front, my whole thing was, when I did the windshield, do I do a straight piece of glass? Do I angle it? After playing around with a few different ideas, and I had the hole cut in it, so I stood there and I saw where I stood while I was going to be using it, I decided the best thing to do would be to do the glass that was leaning in so that I could have plenty of room to see everything properly. So this material that I used for the framework on the window and on the door is HDPE. It's the same material they use for making cutting boards. And you can buy this stuff in sheets. There's a place locally by me that sells it. It's a little expensive, I'll admit it, a little bit expensive, but it worked perfectly. I basically made this triangular box that you see, and then I did a frame that, in fact, it's so see-through that you can see the screws going in to the middle of it. This is, I believe I used 1/2 inch. I'll have to look it up. I think I used 1/2 inch all the way around. I may have used 3/8, but I'll look it up and I'll tell you guys where to buy all this stuff. So what I did was I screwed this together, as you can see by all the screws, but I was stuck in a couple of places. I was stuck where this end met, and I was stuck where this met, because you really had no way to put a screw in. So I bought a plastic welder, and I practiced with it for a little while, and once I got good with the plastic welder, I welded this, and I have to say, after using the plastic welder, I wouldn't have done any of these screws. I would have plastic welded this whole thing together. I mean, I found out they were making boats out of this HDPE with those plastic welders. So, and the plastic welder, I can't remember, I think it was like $150. Again, when I do the video about, you know, the detail, I'll show you the tools, I'll show you the parts, I'll explain how I did it. But the only bolts then I would have on here would be these 1/4 inch bolts that you see all the way around. And what I did was, on the opposite side, I made the opposite pieces. In other words, this side piece goes from the top all the way to the bottom, and the pieces in the middle are in between. Now, on this side, I did the opposite. The pieces on the top are the whole length, and the pieces on the sides go in between the top and bottom piece. I did that for a little bit of strength. I siliconed it all when I screwed it in. I took a router and I routed out the opening for the glass. That's 1/4 inch glass. So building the actual cabinet, I mean, getting the angle, I'll tell you guys what the angle was. I can give you the rough dimensions of the windshield. It fits nicely. It's at the proper height. And as far as the door, I put this drip tray on the door. I don't even think I need it. And here's the thing about the drip trays. They're great and all, but when you open your door, I'm not getting water pouring here. I'm getting water that's left over here on the door or on this rubber strip, and that drips down to the floor when it's open. Now, if I want to leave this drip tray on there, and when I'm letting the cabinet dry, I close the door to about here, and then put this latch right in front of it so that it just, you know, can't open like that. Yeah, if there's anything that's going to drip, it'll drip, but in reality, barely anything goes in there. With all of the vapor blasting I did for testing, this is the extent of the media. Right here, there's like a little bit of media. You can see it on my fingertips. I mean, we're talking so non-existent. You know, this is where you're going to drip. And it's going to drip when the door's open. So really, does the drip tray do anything for me? No, because nothing... now, I originally had weather stripping here along the bottom, in the sides, and along the top. And over here, I put this flap on. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, on the first one, I did this flap on the door. It's basically molding that they use when they put carpeting in, and then this is your baseboard that goes over the carpeting. I did the same thing because that worked so good on the first unit that I built. And what you do is you just hold it up a little when you're going to close the door, and it goes over the seam, and boom, you can just close the door. And then I see if you can see it from the inside. You can see it in there, and the water just drips down and goes back in the cabinet. I even sprayed it with the vapor blaster over there, and I'm not getting any water out of it. I mean, if I really train it on the edges and the upper section, if I really aim it hard, I can get it to maybe drip a little bit out of a side or the top. But I have to tell you, I don't have problems with that. So anyway, so back to how I mounted that. Everything is stainless steel hardware. Everything's siliconed in. So I completed the windshield area here. The door, like I said, the door is 2 foot by 2 foot, and I created these strips on the side and just made the ones behind it 1/2 inch wider, so there was a lip for the door to sit in. So this size plus 1/2 inch is the size of the strips that are on the back, and that made the box frame that this door fits into. For a hinge, I think I used 3-inch hinge on this, and I had to notch them out to use them, but it's because I had the 3-inch hinge laying around. You probably could use 2-inch hinge and not have to make those notches like I did. Again, hinge got expensive after COVID. This is an old IKEA door handle that I had left over from when I redid a kitchen. The drain tray that I used is just a piece of plastic gutter cut in half. I put a little bulkhead fitting at the end just in case I ever had to rinse it out, but there's hardly anything there. These were inexpensive and good. These are the lockdowns to keep the door closed, put a little pressure, hold them against the weather stripping. So I mean, the door is pretty straightforward. But the most waterproof feature is this rubber strip, and they're cheap. I think the piece of that is like $2.30 at Lowe's. So the HDPE is kind of expensive, but I couldn't think of anything better to go with. These are the pond gloves I was telling you about that you can get for as low. I think you can buy a 3-pack for like $18 on AliExpress shipped. This vapor blasting nozzle I'm using is pretty close to most of the ones you see out there, except they redesigned the nozzle on this one a little, and you can get a smaller nozzle hole now. So you're not using quite as much air. I know that some guys have come out with their own nozzle designs. I know that I think it's Armory Enterprises. He's a great guy that does a lot with vapor blasting cabinets, and he's done some stuff with them. I looked at a 3D printed one that I think I might try in here just to see how it does. I think his name is Victor. But some of them I've seen are also really expensive, and is it really going to do that big a difference? Everybody claims it does, but I guess until I have one in my hand and try it, I won't know. So for now, this is working great for me. As far as the windshield wiper, I went with a better wiper this time. This is a Wexco wiper. And before COVID, they were like $99. Now they're like $149, but I found a guy on eBay that's selling them for $43, and I can get you the link to that. It's a 2-speed. You can take the cover off. You can adjust the arc. The other great thing is he has the adjustable length arms with the J-hooks on them, so you can just pull up a lever and you can adjust the length of it. I have a 10-inch blade on here, and I have it adjusted almost all the way in, and it comes down to right here, and you can see it goes to right there and right there. So, and I didn't even have to adjust the arc. So that worked out really well, and having the J-hook arm, you can basically put whatever wiper blades you want. This is also, I used a cheaper one on the last one, and it just wasn't worth it. I had problems with it. So I have a Yamaha Wolverine side-by-side back here, and I put one of those in it a couple years ago, one of these Wexcos, and it's just been fabulous. So again, extra money. Now I did use cable glands to go up through the top, and then you can see the cable comes out and goes through the ceiling, so everything's waterproof and you didn't have to have the cable in your face outside. I used a big LED light bar, like for an ATV or side-by-side, waterproof in the box. My God, is it bright. You'll never have a problem seeing anything. The vent in the back of the box is, that's part of a kit that I got at Lowe's. Lowe's and Home Depot sell it. It's for your gutter system, and I think it's called stealth gutter, or again, when I do the detailed thing, I'll give you the synopsis of what's going on. That's duct hosing up there, which goes to a toilet flange. That's where we vacuum out all the air, because it gets so atomized in there, it's almost like a fog. So we suck the fog out, and we come up to the top, and you'll notice there's a little white support up there. It goes from the 3-inch toilet flange to the 3-inch pipe, and then over and down to this hose. I put that support there because, remember, while this is pretty thick, it's still material that's soft like a milk carton. It's really thick, but that kind of weight on it, it would start to bend it. So I put a support. So the hose comes down, and you can see where it transitions into a smaller hose, which then comes under here. Now this goes into a cyclone bucket, which is basically like those dust deputies and things you see. I built that probably, I don't know, 25 years ago when I was doing drywall work, and it worked amazing. So I just repurposed it in my blaster, and that makes sure that if any of the material, the whole idea is that when you start to suck this stuff up with the shop vac from there, and it takes it up, the reason you want it to go way up and start really low is so that any water never makes it up. Okay, but you might get a small amount of media, and when I say small, after 5 or 6 years of running the other system, I barely got any media in there. I mean, barely. So it goes into the cyclone, then it comes out of the cyclone, and I think it's a 5 horsepower rigid shop vac. And it's got the larger hose on it. The new rigid shop vacs, the 5 horsepower ones, have these little hoses on them that are horrible. So this has the larger hose on it, and that takes care of all the vapor mist, the fog that's going on inside while you're vapor blasting. Works really, really well. So as far as the inside of the cabinet, there is the washer system for the windshield. And you can see the stainless steel hose over there. It comes from the pump. And these are fully adjustable fan heads that spray against the window. Stainless steel hose clamps for the gloves. This is my rinse unit for rinsing off with fresh water from the filter system. I got these sifters on Temu. They were incredibly cheap, and they're great for holding parts, like the next part in line or after you finish a part, in there so that nothing gets lost. Now for my floor, these are squares that interlock. They're rubber drain mat. They're kind of hard. They work great as a platform to work on. Now underneath them, you're going to see this is shelving like you'd see in a restaurant. And those are individual shelves with little leg pieces I cut, and they're all black powder coated so they won't rust. And I've got 2 of those in here as the base. And then we've got the mat over it. So the surface area is great to work on. Really, really good. So let's get this closed, and we will close this door up. Okay, so there's nothing really to show you on the back. So let's go over to the side, and I'll give you a peek at what we got going on over here. Alright, so this is the side of the unit. I know it looks a little confusing. I'll explain it all to you. Let me take the cover off this box on the top. Alright, so we've got that off, and this is what we've got. Okay, so we've got our air line that comes in, and it goes down to a regulator. I think it's a 250 psi regulator or 240. It goes into a 120 volt, I think it's 3/4 inch ball valve, into a 3/4 inch check valve, so that none of the slurry mix could make it backwards into that assembly if you forgot to turn the air or did anything. So the check valve there stops the slurry from coming out. Here's the hose that comes out, goes into the gun. So that's pretty much your air system. And And again, ball valves, electronic, more expensive, take a few seconds to turn on, never had a problem with one in 5 or 6 years. Solenoids, who knows when they're going to go. I've replaced a bunch of them on different equipment. Ball valve is definitely the way to go. Got a little delay, but it's the way it is. Okay, now our pump system, inside this bucket here, we have the Tsunami pump right here inside this bucket. And the Tsunami pump comes up with your 2-inch pipe, and it has a hose barb fitting on here, not a hose barb, a threaded hose fitting here, which goes to the Flexzilla hose, garden hose, which comes out, and there's the other side of what goes into the gun. And then you can see I use cable glands here for the water. So your pump pumps up to the gun, and then above it you'll see this right here. This is your drain coming off of the IBC tote, and it comes down and goes in and goes down and drips back in the bucket and has the return. Now when the water level in the bucket gets high enough, it starts to come out of this pipe over here and go into the first filter box, which it drops down into here, and that way most of your media will sink to the bottom, and it skims the surface. Here's a piece of PVC sticking up here. It skims the surface. This PVC is through a bulk fitting in the bottom. So as it skims the surface, then it drops down inside and goes to the box on the bottom. So it filters the water during that process. Now once it goes into the bottom box on the opposite end from where it dropped in, okay, you can see the top box, your filter box. That's a drain over there, and I put it up high because you usually don't get media past that level. And if you drain it, then it's easier to lift and move around when you want to clean it and change it. Now your lower box stays generally free of media. On the bottom I have that two-way valve there. One, if I want to drain it. Two, the hose is going up to the pump. So now the pump, first it comes up into this little screen filter here. That catches any big pieces that I don't want to go into the pump, and I can clean that easily. It just spins off. Comes up, it goes into this pump right here. It's a Vevor pump. It's actually been working great. It's adjustable pressure. Then it comes up, and we go into the first filter. This is a sediment trap. It works almost like, you know, those cyclonic vacuum cleaners. You can see in here now there's a little bit of debris in there now, and there's some up in here. And the great thing about this is when this chamber fills up with media and debris, all you do is open this valve while the pump is on, and it blasts it out, cleans this out, and then it goes right back around, and I have it going into that bucket. There's an elbow on the other side, and the tube goes all the way down to the base, and it blasts all that water and media back into this bucket. So that catches, this catches the biggest pieces. This catches a little smaller. Now this is even a finer one. This is a sediment filter, works on the same process. And if you open the valve, same thing. It'll blast this clean in that. The last thing will pick up all the dirt and grime, and because I'll tell you, I had stopped pre-washing parts. So I mean, I was getting parts that not only had grease and dirt all over them, but you know, aluminum, oxidized, all that. So this is a normal like 10-inch cartridge filter, and you can still see into the white all over it. It's like speckled right now. So that still has a lot of life left. I usually don't change those until I see the washer starting to slow down or the rinse hose slowing down, and then I have the tool here, and then I put a new cartridge in. Now once it comes out of here, we go into a T. The lower one goes down to the rinse hose where the faucet attachment is, the sprinkler hose attachment. Upwards there's this valve, and then this goes to the washer heads, the little fan heads in there, and you can just adjust the pressure going to those how much you want on the windshield. So that's a basic rundown of the water system on it. Then we have the electrical system. Now for the electrical system I have two wires. I have this one and this one. I have two. And the reason I have two is because upon initial turn on of the Tsunami pump, the vacuum cleaner, the ball valve, that sucks just about 15 to 17 amps on startup. Then it'll level out down to like 10 or 12. But until then, you know, 15, 17 amps. And then up here in the electrical, this is a 125 amp 12 volt power supply. And that runs the water pump, it runs the windshield wiper, it runs the light bar in the ceiling. So I didn't want to overload the outlet in the garage, because it's already, you know, I mean, I got 20 amp outlets in the garage, but if it's already drawing 17, I mean, I saw it at one point hit 18.5 amps on turn on. So I figured I should separate them. So what I did was, this plugs into one circuit, this plugs into another circuit on my wall into two different outlets. And the first one, this black one here, this one comes up, and this one goes to this power switch right here. And again, this box is just to keep dust and stuff out, and if I spring a leak down here, that no water will spray up onto the electrical. It's not anything electrical wise that the box is there. It's just for dust and to stop water from spraying. So anyway, so there's your on-off switch. The on-off switch then turns on this power supply. Once this power supply comes on, it goes to the light inside the light bar, and it's fused. The other two for the windshield wiper and the water pump, I have those relayed because they take more current, and your switches, even though they say 20 amp, they're really only 10 amp continuous. So I made a switch for the water pump and windshield wiper. They go to the relay. They're powered by this. There's all your light, your windshield washer, and your water pump. They're all fused. Now, because this is covered, I put an intake fan, an exhaust fan. This power supply has fans that blow out, so they're going out through this. Now, here's the other thing I did. This is a 120 volt or 250 volt relay. So what I did was, once this power supply turns on, it trips this relay, and what this relay does is let the power that's coming in from this plug through the system and make its way down to the foot pedal right there, so that we can use that power to turn on the vacuum cleaner, the pump that's in the bucket, and the ball valve. So once you step on that, the pump starts, the electronic ball valve opens for the air, and the vacuum comes on. So I'm going to have to open that switch, because that switch is only rated for 15 amps, and it's been taking it, but I'm going to go in and wire it with a little heavier duty switch inside, because I know that I had a 15 amp power strip under here, and the 15 amp power strip would occasionally pop. So now I'm getting ready to put in a 20 amp power strip, which when I do the details, that should be here and done to show you. So that is, in a nutshell, how everything is working. And it works incredibly well. The blasting is awesome. Like I said, I might try some other guns. Maybe I'll buy one of those expensive guns to try out, just to see if it really makes a difference. My compressor, which used to be here, was one of those, I don't even think they sell them anymore. It was a big Harbor Freight compressor. I think they used to sell for like $900 or $1,000. It was always been a good compressor. They were made in USA. But that's what I used to power this up. So that is, oh, I also on the top, so when the vacuum is sucking in, you have to have it be able to get air from somewhere. So I took the main cap off the top, and I cut, I think, a 5-inch hole into it, or a 6-inch hole, and then I put screening over it. You know, screening like you'd use on a screened-in enclosure on your house, or I use screen like that. Fiberglass screen, I think it is. And that lets the air in while it's sucking the air out. So what I'll do is, in a couple of days, I will pull it, not apart, but I mean, I'll pull the bucket out so you guys can see how I did the pump inside. I'll pull the filter boxes out to let you guys see. I'll get underneath it and show you the rest of the wiring. But this is the giant vapor blaster, Venom Blaster 2. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them for you. And hopefully I'll get the other video up soon. Thanks for watching.